The February wind cut through Montana's rolling hills like a blade, carrying the scent of snow and frozen earth. Sarah Mitchell pulled her worn wool coat tighter as she stepped out of her rusted pickup truck at Riverside Cemetery, her boots crunching against the frost-covered ground. The headstone read, "Thomas Mitchell, beloved husband and father, 1985-2023, and even after 8 months the words still felt foreign, carved into the cold granite. At 34, Sarah never imagined visiting her husband's grave alone while 6-year-old Emma was at school, unaware that Mommy still came here every week to cry. Their small ranch was failing without Tom's steady hands and business acumen. Bank notices piled up on their kitchen table like accusations, and her part-time job at Miller's Hardware barely covered groceries, let alone the mounting mortgage payments that grew more threatening each month. "I don't know what to do anymore, Tom," she whispered, breath forming clouds in the frigid air. "Emma keeps asking when Daddy's coming home. The ranch is falling apart." Heavy boots on gravel made her turn. Jake Morrison approached through the cemetery's wrought iron gates, owner of the largest cattle ranch in 3 counties. At 6'6", with shoulders that seemed to block out the grey February sky, Jake had been Tom's closest friend since childhood. His weathered face bore the marks of 42 years of Montana winters, deep lines etched by sun and wind. But his dark eyes held an unexpected gentleness that contradicted his intimidating frame. "Thought I might find you here," Jake's deep voice carried across the quiet cemetery. He removed his black Stetson, revealing salt and pepper hair. "Sarah, you can't keep torturing yourself." Sarah wiped her eyes quickly. "I'm just visiting. Every Tuesday at 2 p.m. right after Emma gets on the school bus." Jake stepped closer. "Tom wouldn't want this for you." "Don't tell me what Tom would want," Sarah snapped, then felt guilty. Jake had been nothing but kind since the drunk driver took Tom's life that snowy December night. Jake knelt beside Tom's grave, his large hand brushing snow from the headstone with surprising tenderness. "He was the best man I knew. Saved my life more times than I can count when we were kids. Made me promise, if anything happened, that I'd look after you and Emma." Sarah's heart clenched painfully. It sounded exactly like Tom, always trying to take care of everyone, even from beyond the grave. "The bank called yesterday. They're moving forward with foreclosure," Jake continued, standing slowly. Sarah's world tilted. "Why would they call you?" "Because I asked them to. Sarah, I want to help you save the ranch, but I need you to trust me." "What kind of help?" Jake was quiet, eyes focused beyond the cemetery gates. When he spoke, his voice was intimate, the kind that would give Emma a father again, give you a partner, give that ranch the resources it needs. Sarah's breath caught. "Jake, what are you saying?" "Marry me, Sarah. Let me take care of you and Emma the way Tom would have wanted." The proposal hung in the air like falling snow, unexpected, transformative. Sarah stared at this man, offering her a lifeline wrapped in impossible complications. "You don't love me," she whispered. "Love grows," Jake replied simply. "I know what kind of woman Tom chose, what kind of mother you are. I know you're strong, loyal, worth protecting. That's more than most marriages start with." "This is insane." "Maybe, but it's practical. I go home to an empty house every night. You need stability. We could help each other." "In winter, you will have my child growing inside you," he said suddenly. "That's not a prediction, Sarah. It's a promise. If you marry me, I'll give you everything: security, a future for Emma, children of our own, a real family." Sarah's heart hammered. The boldness of his words, the certainty in his voice, it was overwhelming and terrifying and thrilling. "I need time to think." Jake nodded, replacing his hat. "Take all the time you need, but the foreclosure moves forward Friday. After that, thinking won't save the ranch." As his footsteps faded, Sarah stood alone in the falling snow, staring at her husband's grave while contemplating an unimaginable future. Deep in her heart, something frozen since December began, ever so slightly, to thaw. Don't forget to like this video if you're enjoying Sarah's story, and comment below telling us which city you're watching from. Your support helps us bring you more compelling stories like this one. The Weight of Decision, Morrison Ranch sprawled across Montana like a postcard, its pristine white fences contrasting sharply with Sarah's modest property 3 miles down the valley. As her pickup truck crunched up the circular gravel driveway, she felt increasingly out of place. 3 sleepless nights had passed since Jake's proposal. The foreclosure notice arrived that morning, making his timeline brutally real. She'd called ahead, voice shaking, asking if they could talk. Jake simply said, "Come for dinner." Emma, too. The massive log cabin that served as Jake's home sat atop a gentle rise, commanding breathtaking views of the entire valley. Smoke curled from its stone chimney into the crisp evening air, and warm yellow light glowed from windows that probably cost more than Sarah's entire monthly budget. Climbing the wide porch steps with Emma's small hand clasped tightly in hers, Sarah wondered if she was making a terrible mistake coming here. "Mommy, this house is huge," Emma whispered, wide-eyed in her best pink dress. "Does Mr. Morrison live here all by himself?" The door opened before Sarah could knock. Jake filled the doorframe, even larger in his own home. He'd traded work clothes for dark jeans and burgundy flannel that made his eyes look almost black. His face softened seeing Emma. "Well, hello there, Miss Emma," he said, crouching to her level. "I was hoping you'd visit. I made chili, and I might have accidentally made way too much." Emma giggled, shyness melting. "Daddy used to make chili too, but he always burned it." Jake's eyes flicked to Sarah. "Your daddy was a good man. I bet he made lots of things better than I do." The interior was exactly what Sarah had expected. Masculine but tasteful, with rich leather furniture, authentic Native American rugs, and expensive Western art that looked like it belonged in a museum. A fire crackled in a massive stone fireplace large enough to stand in, filling the room with warmth and the comforting scent of burning pine. But what surprised Sarah was how warm it felt, how lived in and welcoming despite its impressive size. "Emma, would you like to see something special?" Jake asked, leading them toward the kitchen with a gentle smile that transformed his rugged features. In the mudroom off the kitchen, a large wooden box lined with soft fleece blankets contained 3 sleeping border collie puppies, no more than a few weeks old. Emma gasped with pure delight, her eyes lighting up as she immediately wanted to hold one of the tiny, squirming bundles of fur. "Their mama's out with the ranch hands," Jake explained, lifting a squirming black and white puppy into Emma's arms. "These little guys need lots of attention." While Emma cooed over the puppies with childlike wonder, Jake led Sarah to the kitchen island, where bowls of homemade chili, golden cornbread, and fresh garden salad waited. The kitchen was enormous, with commercial-grade stainless steel appliances and endless granite counter space that could accommodate feeding an army. Sarah felt another sharp wave of inadequacy wash over her as she compared this luxury to her own modest, aging kitchen. They ate mostly in comfortable silence, Emma chattering about school while the adults exchanged meaningful glances. After dinner, Jake showed Emma his movie collection, setting her up with an animated film while he and Sarah stepped onto the back porch. The view from the back porch was absolutely breathtaking. Rolling hills stretched endlessly to the horizon, dotted with grazing cattle and crossed by a silver ribbon of river that caught the last rays of sunlight. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting everything in shades of gold and deep purple that seemed almost too beautiful to be real. "I've been thinking about what you said," Sarah began. Jake leaned against the railing, focused entirely on her. "And? It's crazy, absolutely insane." Sarah paced the porch. "I barely know you, Jake. Yes, you were Tom's friend, but we've maybe had a dozen real conversations. What do you want to know?" The question caught her off guard. She'd expected him to argue or defend his logic. "Everything," she said helplessly. "Your favorite color, how you take coffee, whether you want children, if you snore, what makes you angry. All the things a woman should know before marrying a man." Jake was quiet for a long moment, then began speaking in his deep, measured voice that carried the wisdom of years spent working the land. "Blue, like the sky on a clear Montana morning. Black coffee, no sugar, strong enough to wake the dead. I've always wanted children, but never found the right woman to build a family with. I don't snore, but I do get up early. 4:30 most mornings to check the cattle. What makes me angry is people who hurt those weaker than themselves, politicians who've never done an honest day's work, telling farmers how to run their operations, and anyone who breaks their word. He paused, a genuine smile playing at the corners of his weathered mouth. What makes me laugh is watching a newborn calf discover snow for the first time, old movies with happy endings that make you believe in love again, and the way Emma's face completely lit up when she saw those puppies, like Christmas morning and her birthday all rolled into one. Despite herself, Sarah felt tension ease. That's a start. My turn, Jake said. What scares you most about marrying me? Sarah didn't hesitate. That you'll change your mind, wake up one morning and realize you married a broke widow with a child out of pity and resent us. Jake straightened, expression serious. Sarah, I've been alone 42 years by choice. I've had opportunities, women who wanted my money, my land, my name. I never considered it because none made me want to be better. He stepped closer. When Tom died and I saw you falling apart, trying to hold everything together for Emma, something in me woke up. You're not charity, Sarah. You're a woman worth fighting for. I meant what I said at the cemetery. In winter, you will have my child growing inside you. Not to trap you, but because I can see us building something real, a family, a future. The boldness sent heat through Sarah's body. There was something primal about how he spoke of children, of a future she'd thought died with Tom. What about Emma? She asked. Emma needs stability, security, and a man who'll love her like his own daughter. I can give her all that. Jake's voice gentled. I won't replace Tom, no one could, but I can be the father she needs going forward. Through the window, they saw Emma asleep on the leather sofa with a puppy in her arms. The sight made Sarah's heart clench with longing and fear. The bank gives us until Friday, Sarah said finally. I could write them a check tonight, Jake replied. Pay off your mortgage, give you a fresh start whether you marry me or not. Tom would have wanted that. Sarah stared at him. Why would you do that if you get nothing in return? Because taking care of you and Emma isn't about what I get. It's about honoring a promise to my best friend and doing what's right. Jake's eyes never left her face. But I want more than just to be your benefactor. I want to be your husband, Emma's father, and the man who gives you the family you deserve. The evening air was growing cold, but Sarah felt warm. This near stranger was offering her everything she'd lost and more. It should have felt too good to be true, but something in Jake's steady gaze told her he meant every word. I need to talk to Emma, she said finally. Of course. Take all the time you need. As they went back inside to wake Emma and head home, Sarah caught sight of herself in the hallway mirror. For the first time in months, her face didn't look haunted. Instead, she looked like a woman on the verge of a new beginning, terrified, hopeful, and alive in ways she'd forgotten were possible. The leap of faith. Morning sun streamed through the kitchen window as Sarah attempted pancakes, while Emma chattered beside her, still glowing from dinner at Jake's ranch. The foreclosure notice lay folded on the counter, less than 24 hours before the bank would begin proceedings. Mummy, can we see the puppies again? Emma asked, syrup dripping down her chin. Sarah's heart clenched. How do you explain that the kind man with puppies had offered to become her new daddy? Emma, sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something important. Emma's fork paused, blue eyes growing serious. Are we in trouble, Mummy? Sarah reached for her small, sticky hand. Not trouble. But I have to make a big decision about our future. Mr. Morrison, Jake. He's asked me to marry him. Emma's eyes widened. Like Daddy married you. Yes, sweetheart. Emma processed this with childhood gravity. Would he be my new daddy? He would love you like a daddy should, Sarah said carefully. But your real daddy will always be in your heart. No one can replace him. Would we live in the big house with the puppies? Despite everything, Sarah smiled. Yes, we would. Would Daddy be mad at us? Tears sprang to Sarah's eyes. Oh, baby, no. Daddy loved us so much that he would want us to be happy and safe. He was Mr. Morrison's best friend. Daddy would want him to take care of us. Emma nodded, then asked, "Do you love Mr. Morrison like you loved Daddy?" Sarah struggled for honesty a 6-year-old could understand. "I don't love him the same way yet, but I think I could learn to. And I know he would be good to us, Emma. He would keep us safe. Can I still visit Daddy's grave?" "Of course, sweetheart, whenever you want." Emma seemed satisfied, returning to her pancakes with childhood resilience. An hour later, Sarah stood in her bedroom mirror, wearing her best navy dress, one Tom always said brought out her eyes. Her hands shook applying lipstick, knowing she was about to give Jake her answer. The phone rang. Jake's deep voice filled her ear, tension beneath his usual calm. "Sarah, I wanted you to know, the bank will hold off until Monday if you need more time." Sarah's throat tightened. Even now, Jake was protecting her. "Jake, I've made my decision." Silence stretched across the line. "And? I'm coming over. Is that okay?" "I'll be here." Jake was waiting on the front porch when they arrived, tall frame silhouetted against the wooden door. He'd dressed carefully. Dark jeans, white button-down, his best boots. He looked like a man preparing for the most important conversation of his life. "Emma, why don't you visit those puppies?" he suggested. "Your mom and I need to talk." As Emma scampered toward the mudroom, Jake led Sarah to the living room where fire crackled warmly. They sat on opposite ends of the leather sofa, space between them feeling like a chasm. "I talked to Emma this morning," Sarah began. "I told her about your proposal." Jake's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "What did she say?" "She asked if her daddy would be mad at us." Sarah's voice caught. "A 6-year-old shouldn't worry about things like that." "What did you tell her?" "That Tom would want us to be happy and safe, that he would trust his best friend to take care of us." Sarah met Jake's eyes. "I believe that's true." "Sarah, I'll marry you," she said in a rush. "I'll marry you, Jake Morrison, but I need you to understand what you're getting." Jake went very still. "Tell me." Sarah stood, needing to move. "You're getting a woman still in love with her dead husband, a woman who cries in the shower so her daughter won't see, someone who has nightmares about the phone call that changed everything." She turned to face him, tears streaming. "You're getting someone who doesn't know if she'll ever love you the way you deserve. Someone broken and scared who has no idea how to be a wife to anyone other than Tom Mitchell." Jake rose slowly, closing the distance. When he was close enough to touch her, he stopped, dark eyes intense. "You know what I think I'm getting?" he said softly. "A woman strong enough to keep fighting when her world fell apart. A mother who would do anything to protect her child. A person with enough love in her heart to grieve deeply, which means she has enough love to build something new." His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing away tears. "Sarah, I'm not asking you to stop loving Tom. I'm asking you to let me earn a place beside that love, not instead of it." "What if I can't?" she whispered. "What if I try but just can't open my heart that way again?" "Ah, then I'll love you enough for both of us until you're ready," Jake replied without hesitation. "And if that day never comes, I'll still consider myself the luckiest man alive to have you and Emma in my life." The words broke something open inside Sarah's chest. Not her grief, that would always be part of her, but the wall she'd built around her heart. Jake wasn't asking her to forget Tom or pretend their marriage would be the same. He was offering something different but equally precious: partnership, security, and the chance to heal. "When?" she asked. "As soon as you want. Tomorrow, if you'll have me." "Soon," Sarah interrupted. "Emma needs stability, and I don't want to overthink this anymore." Jake nodded, then surprised her by dropping to one knee right there in his living room, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. "Sarah Mitchell," he said, voice rough with emotion, "will you marry me? Will you let me love you and Emma? Will you build a life with me?" The ring was beautiful, but not ostentatious. A simple solitaire diamond on white gold that looked chosen specifically for her taste. Sarah stared down at this good man kneeling in his own living room, offering her everything she'd thought she'd lost forever. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, Jake Morrison, I'll marry you." Why, as Jake slipped the ring onto her finger, a perfect fit, Emma's delighted squeal echoed from the mudroom. They looked toward the sound to find her peeking around the corner, a puppy in her arms and pure joy on her face. "Does this mean we get to keep the puppies?" Emma asked, racing toward them. Jake laughed, the sound rich and warm as he stood and swept Emma into his arms. "Well, I guess that depends on what your mom says." Sarah looked at her daughter's radiant face, at the ring sparkling on her finger, at the man who just promised to love them both without reservation. For the first time since Tom's death, the future didn't look like something to survive, but something to embrace. "I think," she said, reaching up to touch Jake's face, "we can probably manage one puppy." As the three of them stood there in the warmth of Jake's living room, soon to be their living room, Sarah felt something she'd thought was gone forever. Hope. Not the desperate hope of someone clinging to the past, but the bright, steady hope of someone ready to step into tomorrow. The promise fulfilled. 9 months later, December. The first snow of winter painted Morrison Ranch in pristine white as Sarah stood at the kitchen window, one hand resting on her rounded belly, watching Jake and Emma build a snowman in the front yard. Her 8-year-old stepdaughter was directing Jake with serious intensity, pointing exactly where the carrot nose should go. "A little higher, Daddy Jake," Emma called out, her voice carrying clearly through the windows. Sarah smiled at the nickname Emma had chosen all on her own, shortly after the wedding. Not quite Daddy, that title would always belong to Tom, but something uniquely theirs that honored both relationships. The past 9 months had been a whirlwind of change. They'd married in a simple courthouse ceremony just 2 weeks after Sarah's acceptance, with Emma as their only witness. That evening, Jake had moved them into his home, their home now, and they'd begun the delicate process of becoming a family. It hadn't been without challenges. Sarah had woken from nightmares about Tom, sometimes calling out his name in her sleep. There were days when grief hit her like a physical blow, leaving her weeping in the barn where Jake found her and held her without asking questions. Emma had struggled too, acting out at school and testing boundaries as she adjusted to a new father figure. But Jake had been patient through it all. He'd held Sarah when she cried, given her space when she needed it, and never once made her feel guilty for loving her first husband. With Emma, he'd been gentle but firm, establishing himself as a loving authority figure while always honoring Tom's memory. And somewhere along the way, without Sarah quite noticing when it happened, grief had transformed into something more complex. She still missed Tom, would always miss him, but the sharp edges of loss had softened into bittersweet gratitude. More surprisingly, she'd found her heart opening to Jake in ways that both thrilled and terrified her. The baby kicked, a strong flutter that made Sarah gasp and place both hands on her belly. 7 months pregnant and still amazed that Jake's bold prediction had come true. "In winter, you will have my child growing inside you," he'd promised that day in the cemetery, and here she was, heavy with their son, due in February. The kitchen door opened, bringing cold air and stamping boots. Jake appeared, cheeks red from cold, carrying Emma piggyback style. Both were covered in snow and grinning. "We made the best snowman ever," Emma announced, sliding down from Jake's back. "He has a top hat and everything." "I saw," Sarah said, kissing Emma's cold forehead. "Very impressive. Now go get changed before you catch pneumonia." Emma scampered off, leaving Sarah and Jake alone in the warm kitchen. Jake moved to the sink to wash his hands, and Sarah found herself studying his profile as she had so many times over the past months. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, catching her staring. "You," Sarah said honestly. "Us. How different everything is from a year ago." Jake dried his hands and moved to stand behind her, arms circling her waist and hands coming to rest on her belly. Their son kicked again, as if responding to his father's touch. "Any regrets?" Jake asked, voice carefully neutral. Sarah leaned back against his solid chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "About marrying you? No." She paused, then added with characteristic honesty. "About how fast we moved, sometimes. About how complicated it all is?" "Definitely." Jake's arms tightened around her. "Complicated how?" Sarah turned in his arms, looking up into his dark eyes. "I love you," she said simply. "I didn't expect to, didn't plan to, but I do. And that feels like a betrayal sometimes." Jake's face softened. Of Tom? Of Tom? Of Emma? Of myself, maybe? Sarah struggled to find the words. When I married you, I thought I was making a practical decision. Security for Emma, saving the ranch, giving her a father figure. But somewhere along the way it became real. You became everything. Jake cupped her face in his hands, thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. Sarah, love isn't finite. Loving me doesn't diminish what you had with Tom. It just means your heart is big enough for both. I know that in theory, Sarah whispered, but sometimes I feel guilty for being happy. What do you think Tom would want for you? Jake asked gently. Sarah smiled through her tears. He'd want me to be happy. He'd want Emma to have a father. He'd probably tease you mercilessly about getting the better end of the deal. Smart man, Jake said, leaning down to kiss her forehead. He chose well when he picked you. The baby kicked again, more insistently, and Jake's face lit up with wonder. Even after months of feeling their son move, he still looked amazed every time it happened. He's getting stronger, Jake observed, his hand tracking their baby's movements. He's going to be big like his daddy, Sarah said. Dr. Martinez thinks he might be close to 9 pounds when he's born. Emma thundered back into the kitchen in fresh clothes, her hair damp from washing off snow. Mama, can we make hot chocolate, please? Of course, baby girl, Sarah said, grateful for the interruption. As they prepared hot chocolate together, Emma carefully measuring marshmallows, Jake stirring the milk, Sarah supervising from her perch on a bar stool, Sarah marveled at how natural it all felt. This kitchen that had once seemed too large and intimidating now felt like the heart of their home. I have an announcement, Emma said solemnly, as they settled around the kitchen table with their steaming mugs. Oh? Jake raised an eyebrow. What kind of announcement? Emma straightened in her chair, clearly having practiced this moment. I've decided what I want to name the baby. Sarah and Jake exchanged amused glances. Emma had been full of suggestions for months, ranging from Snowball to Batman to Thomas, the last one always making Sarah's heart clench. And what would you like to name your little brother? Sarah asked. Thomas Jacob, Emma said firmly. Thomas for my first daddy, and Jacob for my second daddy. That way he has both of you. The kitchen fell silent, except for the soft bubbling of milk cooling and the whisper of snow against the windows. Sarah felt tears spring to her eyes as she looked at her daughter, this wise, loving little girl who'd found a way to honor the past while embracing the future. Jake cleared his throat roughly. Emma, that's a beautiful name. Do you like it, Mama? Emma asked anxiously. Sarah reached across the table to take her daughter's hand. I think it's perfect, sweetheart. Absolutely perfect. That night, after Emma had gone to bed and they'd cleaned up the kitchen, Sarah and Jake sat in front of the fireplace. Sarah curled against Jake's side, with his hand resting on her belly. The snow continued to fall outside, blanketing the ranch in pristine quiet. Thomas Jacob Morrison, Jake said quietly, testing the name. Tommy for short, maybe. Sarah nodded, her head resting on his shoulder. Emma's right. It's perfect. Both of you in his name. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the flames dance in the fireplace. The house was warm and quiet around them, filled with the contentment that comes from being exactly where you belong. Jake, Sarah said eventually, do you ever wonder what Tom would think of all this? Of us? Jake was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her arm. I think he'd be relieved, he said finally. Tom worried about you and Emma constantly. He used to say that if anything ever happened to him, he hoped you'd find someone who would love you both as much as he did. He said that more than once, usually when he'd had a beer or two and got philosophical. Jake's voice carried a note of old grief. He knew his job was dangerous, ranching, the equipment, the long hours driving back roads. He never wanted you to be alone. Sarah felt fresh tears threaten. Even in death, Tom was still taking care of them, having planted the seeds of this relationship years before through his friendship with Jake. I miss him, she whispered. I know you do. I miss him too. Jake's arms tightened around her. But Sarah, I don't think loving me means missing him less. I think it means honoring what he gave you, the capacity for deep love, by sharing it with someone new. The baby stirred restlessly, pressing against Sarah's ribs. She shifted, trying to find a more comfortable position, and Jake immediately adjusted to support her better. 2 more months, she said, both excited and apprehensive. 2 more months, Jake agreed. Are you ready? Sarah considered the question seriously. Was she ready to bring another child into the world, ready to love another little person with the fierce protectiveness that came with motherhood, ready to watch Jake become a father for the first time, to see Emma become a big sister? I'm ready, she said with sudden certainty. I'm ready for all of it. Jake pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Good, because I can't wait to meet our son. Outside, February snow continued to fall, blanketing the ranch in pristine white. Inside, a family waited together for the arrival of their son, Thomas Jacob Morrison, named for the past and the present, carrying the promise of their future. Jake Morrison had said that in winter, Sarah would have his child growing inside her. As February snow fell gently outside and their baby stirred restlessly within her, Sarah knew that some promises were worth the leap of faith it took to believe in them. Their son would be born into a family built on love, loss, healing, and hope, exactly as it should be. The past had shaped them, but it wouldn't define their future. Together, they were writing a new chapter, one filled with the kind of love that could honor what came before while embracing what lay ahead. 2 weeks later, on a crystal-clear February morning, with sunlight streaming through their bedroom windows and snow blanketing the ranch in pristine white, Sarah felt the first unmistakable signs that their wait was nearly over. This time, there was no panic, no rushing to the hospital in fear. Instead, there was quiet excitement, careful preparation, and the deep satisfaction of a promise about to be fulfilled. Jake Morrison had made a bold declaration in a cemetery on a cold February day 9 months ago. He'd promised that in winter, Sarah would have his child growing inside her. As their son prepared to make his entrance into the world, surrounded by love and welcomed by a family that had found its way through grief to joy, Sarah understood that the most beautiful promises weren't just words. They were commitments kept, hearts opened, and futures built one day at a time. The promise had been kept, their family was complete, and their love story, born from loss but nurtured by hope, would continue to grow for all the winters yet to come. Thank you for following Sarah and Jake's journey from beginning to end. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up and let us know in the comments which city you're watching from. We love connecting with our viewers around the world. Don't forget to subscribe for more compelling stories that celebrate the power of love, family, and second chances. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most beautiful chapters of our lives begin when we have the courage to turn the page.